Welcome to the SCI Forum podcast. This podcast was produced by the Northwest Regional Spinal Cord Injury System in the University of Washington Department of Rehabilitation Medicine. The Northwest Regional SCI system is dedicated to improving the lives of people with SCI through excellent patient care, research, and education. To learn more about our podcasts and videos or to make a donation, go to sci.washington.edu.
Hello, and welcome to the Spinal Cord Injury Forum podcast. My name is Jeannie Hoffman, and I am the director of the Northwest Regional Spinal Cord Injury System and a clinical psychologist and professor at the University of Washington Department of Rehabilitation Medicine. Today, I'm talking with Billy Price about his path to entrepreneurship. He turned a problem that he was having into a great solution and then into a great business venture. So, Billy, thank you for coming today, and thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
So, to start out with, Billy, can you just give me a little background on your injury? I mean, we've known each other for years, but the listeners probably don't know much about you unless they've seen your video.
Sure. Very good. Wow. Okay. So where to start? So I'm 40 years old. Let's start there. And when I was a freshman in college, when I was 18, I unfortunately had an accident where I fell out of a 3-story window. And when that happened, it was a head-first fall to concrete, and I broke my neck and my back. And the injury that resulted from that fall left me paralyzed, basically from the chest down. And I'm considered a C6 quadriplegic. And from that point in time, there were a lot of things that I used to be able to do that, unfortunately, I could no longer do. And a lot of those things are the elements like day-to-day activities that we just take for granted. And that's just touching the surface. But there's a lot of other things that became much more challenging in a real hurry.
So tell me a little bit about kind of how much help you need right now in terms of current function and kind of what do you need help with, and just to paint a bit of a picture of kind of what it means to have your level of injury.
Sure. Well, where I am now compared to where I was is a completely different deal. Currently, right now, when it comes to needing assistance, I am pretty well self-sufficient. I do need help with kind of some bathroom function every other day, and general like cooking and whatnot, and like just laundry and stuff. But other than that, I'm pretty well self-sufficient. I have a full-time job, and I'm also an entrepreneur, which has been a side hustle, which is I'm sure we'll get into to talk about a little bit more. And I've been a peer mentor for the University of Washington Medical Center for quite some time. I love to travel. I got married three years ago, and my family lives in this area. I grew up in this area, have lots of friends in this area, so I'm still very active.
So going back to the fun stuff to get to the new idea, tell me a little bit about, like, you were a freshman in college. How quickly did you go back to school after your injury?
Okay. So the year was 1996. I broke my neck. Actually, it was on October 9th, 1996. So it's right around the corner for being, what would that be? 22 years since my injury. Well, when that happened, I got admitted to the University of Washington Medical Center. And I spent the next 5.5 months of my life basically piecing it back together, both physically and mentally. When you used to be very, very active and then all of a sudden you're not, that's a real mental barrier to get through. And, immediately after the accident, I went to a very dark place. And it was a place where I remember I was laying on my back on the hospital bed, and there was a moment where I just thought to myself, you know what, if it's not worth living if you can't walk. And, when you make that kind of comment, it really scared me. It really did scare me. And what it did was it highlighted that I was on a path. I was really at a point of choice. It was a matter of staying in this dark, dark place and just letting life pass me by, or, I don't even know. Or I could focus on more like what I had and try to do something with it, and which would be more like a growth mentality. And that was the route that I chose to go down. Now, when I made that choice, it's not like everything became easy. It's not like it's Candyland all of a sudden. But it's been a daily grind, and it's been a daily grind ever since. But it's been a very prosperous grind, and step by step, day by day, I've improved. So when I was in the hospital for that time, when I got discharged from the hospital, I moved back home to my parents' house, and not too long after that, I went back to school. I went back to the University of Washington to continue the degree that I just started, which was mechanical engineering. I was only really in school for about a week and a half, so it doesn't really count, but I still picked up where I left off. And my injury, I was in a fraternity at the time, so I actually moved back to the house. Coincidentally, the house that I was in didn't have stairs in front, so it was very easy to make it like an access point for me. And there was also a space on the first floor that they were able to put together for a room for me with the bathroom. So I was good to go. And that's basically where I started my life again in a wheelchair, a very different life, but still on the right path for, a very successful one.
You got your degree in mechanical engineering. You got a full-time job. At what point did this idea come to mind, and kind of what led to your tell us a little bit first about kind of what the business is, because I think just being upfront about that first might help us frame a bunch of questions.
Sure. Okay, so I'm an entrepreneur. It's been a side hustle, and what I did was I started a shoe company, and it's myself and my other co-founder, Darren Donaldson, and then we're also surrounded by about 4 other people on the team, 5 other people now. And it's been awesome. It's been really good. And before I really go into those details, I never sought out to be an entrepreneur. The job that you're talking about that I got when I was in college, I interned for a couple of summers at Boeing. And when I was at Boeing, I was told that the Federal Aviation Administration, a federal job, if there was an opening available, would be a good one to pursue. And there happened to be a job fair at the down by the Space Needle, and the FAA had a booth there, and it was actually called the Disability Job Fair. So a lot of folks there that had functionality like myself went down there and they were looking for jobs. But I was just convinced I was gonna get this job, so I went down there dressed for success, had my resume made, had my had the references all intact, and went in there and talked to some great people, put on a nice little presentation, and lo and behold, they called me back a number of months later. And that turned into an interview, which then led to employment. So I started working there. It's very easy for me to remember the day. It was 3/3/3. It was March 3rd, 2003. And I've worked there ever since. So here we are, 2018. So it's been over 15 years. But touching back on things that when you're in a chair compared to when you're not in a chair, things that I used to be able to do that I couldn't do now, or I can't do now. One of those things that always eluded me, I figured out how to do a lot of things, but one of the things that really eluded me was how to put on my own shoes. And, when I got injured, there were certainly shoes on the market that had the functionality that I could use, but they just looked terrible. And I had no interest in wearing something that looked different. I remembered, I just had flashbacks of, being on the playground growing up. And if you were wearing something different, you were reminded that you were wearing something different. And the last thing I wanted to do was be that guy. So I gave up. There wasn't anything on the market that satisfied both the function and the fashion, so I just gave up. And people had been putting my shoes on ever since that day. But that always bugged me. And I finally got to a point where it's like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And pretty much literally staring at my feet for half a lifetime, the thought of being able to put a zipper in a shoe, now certainly having a zipper in a shoe is not original, but my thought was if you have a zipper in a shoe that goes on the outside of the shoe and around the toe, where when you unzip it, the whole upper of the shoe folds over, so it exposes the whole footbed, and you can put your foot in unobstructed, I thought I'd have a fighting chance to be able to put my shoes on by myself. But the big thing was I didn't have a vehicle to take that dream and turn it into an actual product or turn it into a reality. So what happened was my friend, Darren Donaldson, who I grew up with, rode the bus together. We had lost contact with each other, and we happened to get together he was having a holiday party at his house. And when we were catching up, within that conversation, he said, or I asked him, I said, so what have you been working on these days? And he happened to say, well, I've been working on this shoe project. And at that time, he was working on kind of a women's boot, kind of like like an UGG, I suppose, but it was made out of sweatshirt material. And his website was called swoots.com, so SWOOTZ.com. And when he told me that, I said, well, I got a shoe idea. And I told him my idea, and I said, you know what, I bet if we made this thing, I bet I could put my shoes on by myself. And he already had the contacts in place to make a prototype, so we moved forward with it. And in that moment, that was the genesis of what later became Billy Footwear.
That's amazing to think about. Just it's like the right time, the right people. Can you remind me how many years was that between your injury and coming up with like connecting with him again?
So I got my actual injury date was October 9th, 1996. And that conversation with Darren happened in December of 2011. And then in February of 2012, we formed our company called Build On LLC. So it's kind of a play on words. So Billy Price, and he's Darren Donaldson. So it's Build On. But it's also a play on words in the sense that it's a matter of building on what you have. It's like forgetting what you've lost, but building on what you have. And that's when that conversation happened. It happened in December of 2011. We formed our company in 2012. And then our shoes actually landed on the shelves of Nordstrom in August of 2017. So you'll notice there's a bit of a gap in between starting it and actually being on the shelves to be able to actually have people touch. Yeah. So what happened in between that, there's a lot that happened. We initially didn't start off with the shoe, because to jump into the shoe business is a very expensive thing to do. And what we did was we started with a ski glove. And skiing was one of those things that I did prior to being in a chair, and it was a sport that I wanted to continue after being in a chair. And after I got discharged, I went down to the Winter Park down in Colorado. They have an incredible adaptive ski program down there. And I mean, at the time, it was the best. I'm sure they're right up there now, but there's a lot of other ski areas that have fantastic adaptive programs as well, including, what was Ski for All, but now Outdoors for All here local. But anyway, I went down there and put on a helmet, just like put myself down the hill and made a go of it. And it was great. I loved it. But the problem was I couldn't hold my outriggers very well because I just don't have that hand dexterity. My level of injury, it allows me to have a wrist, but no finger dexterity. So I can move my wrist back, which makes my hands close together, but I just don't have the dexterity or the grip to really hold on to something like that. So my dad and I guess my dad was my hands. I pitched an idea to him, like if I was holding on to, for example, like a PVC pipe, and if you took that PVC pipe and incorporated it into a whole ski glove, like a big mitt, that might give me the opportunity to have that go on the outrigger, and then you could Velcro it up, and then you'd be good to go. So that's what we did. We made a little prototype to work for me, and then I was very successful, or I still am very successful on the slopes. So that prototype that we made, that was what we started with as our first product on Build On. We did a Kickstarter campaign. We put a goal at $7,500, and from that goal, we generated over $20,000. A lot of support came from Outdoor Research. Outdoor Research is a local company here in Seattle. They make a lot of outer apparel. And just a connection got us in contact with them, and they were very, very helpful in terms of helping us make our really garage tech prototype manufacturable. And then, that Kickstarter campaign was great. It was cool. But the real thing that linked between the glove and the shoes was the success of that Kickstarter campaign caught the eye of a reality television show. And the reality television show recruiter reached out and said, I see you have this ski glove. What else do you have? And then that was the opportunity to say, well, we have a shoe idea. And at that time, all it was a drawing. It was just a Adobe Illustrator rendering of an idea of being able to open it up and have just a little graphic where the zipper was. And they said, do you have a prototype? And then it's like, well, we'll get back to you. And then 4 weeks later, we had a prototype. And it was really rough. It was so ugly. But it worked. And that was the first moment in time that I was able to put my shoes on by myself. And that was literally like 18 years after my injury. So half a lifetime not being able to do it. And then now just able to conquer that goal. And as soon as that happened, it was a reminder, or I should say it was more just this enlightenment of we need to do something big with this. We met our goal, but then it was a matter of like, we need to share this. We can't keep it. And what we thought was, we do not want to make something adaptive, because the only way this is going to survive is it needs to have mass market appeal. Because if you make it adaptive, it's going to be niche. The price is going to be very expensive. And the person that really needs it, unfortunately, is have to pay a lot of money. And again, you're going to be that person on the playground that looks different. And we did not want that to happen. Because, it was just deja vu, once again. So we wanted to make something that could be competitive and could sit on the shelves alongside the Nikes of the world, Vans, Converse, Adidas, all those guys. So that's what we sought out to do, and lo and behold, that's what we've done.
You mentioned this reality TV show that people approached you. Did that actually end up turning into anything other than kind of pushing you all to actually develop the prototype, to move it forward? Did it give you additional funding? Kind of what role did that play?
Right. So the reality television show was called Quit Your Day Job, and it was featured on the Oxygen channel. I believe it only lasted one season. It was kind of a Shark Tank thing in nature, I suppose. But Shark Tank is more when a business is already established. This was more designed for the early entrepreneur, and they're coming in as angel investors. So that said, another thing that I guess I should add is we all know that reality television isn't necessarily reality. So what came across through the television isn't quite necessarily what happened behind the scenes. But what it did was, so in terms of like what came of that show, two major things happened. One was it was the catalyst to move us forward. That was the big thing. There was a sense of urgency we had to make that turned out, looking back on it now, they were huge decisions, but it was the motivator for us to jump in the deep end. And then even after the show was over, with the mindset of like, okay, we need to try to leverage this exposure and stretch ourselves even further. That was really the biggest thing that came from that thing, just a real swift kick in the butt for us to move forward. The other part of it is we got some amazing contacts out of it. And one of which is an organization that's here local in Seattle. They're called Tether. They're a branding and marketing company. They're right down in Pioneer Square. And they really helped us kind of frame in what our brand was or what our brand is. Because we had a kind of a generalized logo when we did the ski glove. But when we worked with Tether for the show, it got refined and simplified, but still embodying the same qualities that we want to, talk about, and the same mission and whatnot, the same vision. That's all wrapped up in our company.
So tell me about the Billy Goat.
Sure.
The Billy.
Sure.
Yeah.
So our logo is a goat. Again, kind of a play on words. My name being Billy and a goat being a goat, so Billy Goat. I guess that's kind of a funny thing to say. But the other thing is, when we were looking for logos, I really wanted to have something that had just an attitude of tenacity and an attitude of determination and just overall grit. Something that if it were faced with a challenge, it wasn't going to back down. And I think about those, rams or something with a massive rack that just blasts through things, or just those mountain goats like in the Alps that are just, they're scaling faces that, it darn near defies physics. It's just unbelievable, just incredible. And I just felt that like that type of persona would do us well. So that's kind of the background of the goat. And when we first did the goat with the ski glove, there was a lot more detail attached in it. But the challenge was when you start making that logo small, it gets really muddy. You can make it big, but if you go small, it gets really challenging. So Tether simplified it tremendously, and they nailed it.
Yeah, it's a great logo. You finally got this kind of kick in the pants, kind of moved it forward. What were those kind of, next steps? Clearly this reality show didn't get you to quit your day job. So kind of where was that from that point to getting it on the shelves of Nordstrom's? Tell me a little bit more about kind of what those steps have been, because again, it's not magic, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, most definitely not magic. So from that moment of after we finished filming, there was a delay in time of when it was in air, and it was probably about 6 months or so. So within that 6 months, after the show had filmed, all we had were 3 prototypes. That was it. We had our original prototype that Darren and I put together, and then 3 others that of different sizes. Well, you can't start a shoe company with 3 samples. You need to have a full-blown line and product to sell. So the next step was to develop a line. And the thought was we'll develop a kids line, a women's line, and a men's line. So through that show, we got connected with a gal who's a designer who'd been in the shoe industry for quite some time. And she kind of took what we had done, the overall zipper concept, how it goes around the toe and whatnot, opening up. And then she put some creative design work to that. And then it came up with various silhouettes. And from those silhouettes, and she already had a contact with a manufacturing company. I can't remember exactly how that contact was, but she already had some experience with a various manufacturer. And we moved forward with it. We made 50 different styles. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of silhouettes. There's probably about 12 different silhouettes, but by changing materials and changing colors and whatnot, you can do a lot. You can do a real lot just with various silhouettes. And from those 50 different designs that we had, we chose the ones that we wanted to move forward with. And it ended up being 2 kids' shoes, 2 women's shoes, and 3 men's shoes. Because frankly, that was as far as my pocketbook could go. That was the limiting factor. And from those shoes, when we started doing production, the production was a little bit behind schedule, and the shoes actually weren't going to arrive before the show aired. So what we did was we did another Kickstarter campaign, this for the shoes, which acted more like a pre-sale for the product coming in, and that was really successful. We put a goal at 30,000, and we got 30,000, which is great. I think it was actually about 32,000. And it was cool. And then from that, we launched our e-commerce site, and which is billyfootwear.com, and people started ordering from us directly, and it was great. So here's the challenge. We were selling product. Well, we were pre-selling product before it arrived, and when it arrived, it turned out so. So whenever you're ordering anything in manufacturing, there's minimums. In shoes, typically the minimums are about 1,200 units. You can do 600 pairs, but you pay a bit more of a premium. So of those, of those 7 styles that we ran with, we were able to reduce it to 600 pairs. So there was 4,200 pairs that came in. And when we opened up the boxes and started going through them, what we noticed was about 80% of those were blemished, unsellable. So that initial go, which was over $100,000, was an absolute financial and manufacturing disaster. And that's how we started.
Wow.
But we didn't realize how bad it was because we started sending stuff out. Because it's in the box, and you start sending it out, just like going back and forth. But the product was coming back. And people were like, these don't fit, they're too wide, like something's broken, like the stitch is bad, on and on and on and on. And then it was finally like, what is going on? And we finally were able to get all the product in our own possession, because at that time we were utilizing a warehouse down in California. And we got all in our own possession and started going through it, and we realized that it was just a complete disaster. And in that moment, there you go again. You're laying on your back in the hospital again. It's like, what are we going to do? It's like, are we going to stay in darkness, or are we going to try to seek the light? And we took a big gulp, and we leaned into it and threw more money at it and kept moving forward. So from that disaster, we started collecting more people on our team. And the next person we gained was a gentleman that had, he's a shoe dog. I mean, he's been in the shoe industry for many, many years. He's worked at Nordstrom. He's been representing many, many brands. Currently, right now, he's representing K-Swiss, but he's now a partner of our team. His name is Patrick Foster. And he was the door opener to be able to get us to have a conversation with Nordstrom, to be able to get us to have a conversation with Zappos. And, the list goes on and on as our company history keeps going on and on. But he was the one that was able to get us in the room with the right people to show like the best of our garbage product, to say this is what we're working on. And obviously was not in a position at all to be able to be on the shelves of Nordstrom or Zappos, but at least got us in the room with the right person to say, here we are, this is what happened. do you know anyone that we could work with to move forward with? And from those conversations, we got some names. And then we started working with a sourcing partner here local in Bellevue named Topline. And Topline, what they do, so what a sourcing partner is, okay, let me back up a tad. When we first went out, we went directly to a manufacturer. And when that happens, there's really, you're inheriting all of the risk. There's no middleman whatsoever. And we did 4,200 pairs of shoes, which for us was a lot, over $100,000, which is a lot. But in the greater scheme of things, that is nothing. That is just pennies compared to millions and millions and millions. When you work with a sourcing partner, they have the clout because they manufacture millions of pairs. So if something were to go wrong again, they have the clout to be able to fix it. They have the clout to be able to go to that manufacturer and say, like, you know what, you guys did not do us right. You need to sort this out or we're never going to work with you again. That was the kind of power. That was the kind of association that we needed. That was the kind of quality that we needed. And we just fortunately were able to get a opportunity to talk with Topline. We showed up on their doorstep, knocked on their door, they let us in, and kind of told them the history. And I'm sure that we were a gamble. I'm sure we were a high risk because all we had was kind of a vision of where to go, what we wanted to do. Because our vision was to tear down the wall between adaptive and non-adaptive. I mean, nobody was doing that, or if they were doing it, it hadn't really, reached the media yet. And they opted to take us on, and we started manufacturing with them. And it's been great ever since. And from those shoes, those were the shoes that ended up landing on Nordstrom. And then we launched with Nordstrom and Zappos at the same time, which is August of 2017. And that's when we really started to gain traction. At that time, we turned off the e-commerce from our site, so we were driving all of our traffic to our retail partners. And we've gone through a couple of iterations now of product with Topline, and it's been spectacular. So now we're on the shelves of Nordstrom, Zappos, Amazon owns Zappos, so we're also on the Amazon platform. Kids Foot Locker just picked us up. We're in conversations with Journeys, Nordstrom Rack, Century 21 on the East Coast, and it's just been spectacular.
So this has not been a quick journey, but it sounds like this past year has really been a big shift from, a year ago, last summer to, a little bit over a year later. It sounds like you have a lot more partners. What does your product look like now? Are you still with the 3 men's, 2 women's, 2 kids?
Right. And that's a great question. I'm glad you touched on that. So when we did the Kickstarter campaign, we did 2 kids, 2 women's, and 3 men's. And having just 2 pairs of shoes or 3 pairs of shoes, again, you can't start a business with that, or you can't have a legitimate line. So we needed to choose which direction to expand into first, because again, that was as far as my pocketbook could go. So we opted to expand into kids starting. And we came out, when we first launched with Nordstrom and Zappos, we came out with 12 different SKUs. We had a high top and a low top. And so there are really only 2 silhouettes, but with various fabrics and various colors. It generated to be 12 different styles. And the size ranged from a toddler 10 up to a youth size 6. And that's what we did. I mean, we decided to start our brand with the kids line. And forecasting ahead, we're going to circle back to the adult line. We're actually working on those designs right now, and we'll have those available by fall of 2019.
So why kids? Why did you pick that? I mean, these are your shoes for you.
Right. Great question. So here was the thought behind that. So a couple things. One was, when we were on that reality television show, one of the investors that was on there was Randy Zuckerberg, and she was very supportive of what we were doing, and she was speaking very highly about how effective and how ready the kids market would be for our product. Because as a kid, I mean, one is, or let me rephrase that. As a parent, you want your child to be able to put their shoes on, and hopefully you'd like to have them put their shoes on quickly and independently. So having a shoe that allows, well, let me back up. When it comes to like shoes of kids, you have to stuff your foot into a shoe. And when you're stuffing your foot into a shoe, it can be really challenging, especially for kids, and especially for me, but I'm in a different scenario. But kids still have that same issue. If you can make something that opens up where they don't have to stuff it in, they just place their foot in, it's a very empowering deal. So the parents love the convenience. And, those mornings where the parents are like, oh my gosh, please, will you get your shoes on? We need to go. We need to go. And by providing our shoes to the family unit, they're able to get out of the house not only quicker, but they're able to completely avoid that whole stressful situation. So you're starting the day off with a moment of success, which sets you up that much better moving forward for the rest of the day. So it seemed very, very relevant. And also, the kids are, I would say, more open for new ideas because they're looking at a shoe. Because I remember wearing the shoes I wore as a kid. I mean, they were just all over the map. So having something that would be fun, having something that would be, a little bit different, having something that would be new, that the parents would be willing to, go out on a limb on, like a non-name brand. And I don't know, it just made a lot of sense. And we were considering kind of low-hanging fruit. And we've really hit a home run, which has been awesome.
Once you get an idea, I mean, are you finding other people that are kind of coming out with similar ideas? Is this something that you patent? Can you corner the market in a way?
Right. So the uniqueness of our shoe is definitely patentable. And right when we were in the throngs of that television show, we did seek legal counsel, and we put in provisional patent, and it's a utility patent, not a design patent. The utility function of the actual being able to step into the shoe unobstructed. And then we filed for the full-blown patent. The great thing about it is when you're in the process, when you're still patent pending, you're protected. So that was the big thing. Having a zipper in a shoe, I will be the first to admit, having a zipper in a shoe is not original. You see it all the time. But the nature of being able to put your foot in unobstructed, not having to stuff your foot into a shoe, that is unique. And I would not be surprised if there are other people out there that have had similar ideas. I think one of the advantages that we have as a business on our end is the idea and the execution and the first story of success came from the originator. So if it were to be a shoe of similar nature from the outside, and someone like presenting it to somebody saying this might work better for you, that might come off as more of a gimmick. Whereas this is, for example, if this business totally went belly up, and there's one moment of success that cannot be taken away, and that was the moment I was able to put my shoes on by myself for the first time. That cannot be taken away. The rest of the business can go away, but that one moment of success, that can never be taken away, and that is an authentic moment. And that authentic moment is what we built on,
Right.
and that holds power. And it's great because it shows that, and I say this not to try to put myself on a pedestal, but what it does, it shows that the human body, if you choose to pursue something and pursue it and lean in, you have more capacity than you know.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be pain and there's going to be struggle, but you can do it. I mean, get in there and just keep trying. And that's the genesis of our company. That is our company to a core. Just keep leaning in, keep moving forward, and add value. But circling back to your question about the zippers and whatnot, I'm sure there will be other brands out there that are trying to do what we do. One thing that they cannot duplicate, they cannot copy, is the story.
Yeah,
they can't copy our company story. They can't duplicate the origin of this idea. I mean.
Yeah,
anyone can create a product, but I mean, it's the inspiration behind it that I think really is the part that draws people in. Our vision was to take fashion and smash it together with function. So we wanted to take fashion and function together and create something that would have a universal design. So one of our taglines is universal design with fashion in mind. Because you think, and the example that I typically give is when you think of like a coffee shop, for example, like that building, me being in a wheelchair, I can roll into that coffee shop, no problem. Or someone can walk into that coffee shop, no problem. But you wouldn't consider that space adaptive. You would consider that space inclusive. Everyone can use it. Or if you think of like a cell phone where it has texting and voice command, those characteristics. So those characteristics originally stemmed from the deaf and the blind, but it's something that everybody enjoys now. So you wouldn't think of a cell phone, like an iPhone or whatever, you wouldn't think of that as an adaptive device. It works for everybody. So what we were trying to do is take that same type of stuff that was already out in the mainstream, but apply it to fashion, and to make something inclusive that could play in both the function realm and the fashion realm. So the thing that's so cool is, the vast majority of the audience that purchases our shoes, they don't need the function. The vast majority of our customers just love the convenience. But the people that do need the function, their minds are blown because it is incredibly empowering. And we've had so many emails come in. It's been awesome because I kind of run the customer service. And it's kind of been overwhelming recently with our tremendous growth. But these emails that come in, you can just feel like the tears coming through the words of joy, where we've allowed a parent to be empowered, given them a tool to empower their child, and they've witnessed for the firsthand, our shoes are the first shoes that their children are putting on by themselves. And some of these kids, my gosh, they'll have braces or something like that where they just can't get their feet into a normal shoe because it's a rigid 90-degree thing. And they could be 3 years old, they could be 15 years old, they could be like whatever. And same success stories where they are putting their shoes on for the first time independently. And my gosh, that's just remarkable. And that's just on the function side. And then you have the fashion side where it's like, oh my gosh, my kids just hate doing laces. They just hate tying it up. Your shoes are so convenient. So you have a product that plays in both these worlds. And it's just been a real joy to be able to have a product that can, cater to both audiences.
What's your advice for people who have an idea? What's your advice for people who think that they might have a spark, have an idea?
Yeah, that's a big question. And you need to be all in. That's for sure. If you're going to jump, you need to jump in, and as soon as you jump in, there's no getting out of the pool. Like you gotta swim. You just have to do it, because so think of it this way. One example would be when we had that manufacturing disaster. If we would have stepped away, this would have been a failed business. But because we didn't quit, it's being successful. So if you think about like when you're growing up as a child, when they try to get up to walk and they fall, or if they get up on a bike and they fall over, it's not one of those, well, I gave it a shot, I'm not going to ride a bike ever. Oh, I gave it a shot, I'm not going to walk ever. They're going to keep working at it until it works. So the real success is generated. If you want to succeed more, you need to fail more. You need to be able to get out there and fail. And it's not a matter of like failing and doing it again. It's a matter of failing and then understanding what went wrong, analyzing that, making an adjustment, and then moving forward. So this business has been a series of failure after failure after failure, just little failures, but adjusting and learning from those failures and keep moving forward. So if someone has an idea and they want to get it out there, the two big things I would say is embrace failure, because failure is not bad, and it won't be a failure so long as you don't quit. But you better make sure you have a market for it. And it needs to be a passion project, and you need to work hard. You need to work very, very hard. It doesn't magically happen. It's not the lotto. You just don't get this money. Like, you need to grind. And there are going to be sleepless nights, but you can do it. The capacity that a human has is absolutely incredible. Like, we have more capacity than we even know. And oftentimes what happens is you need to be associated with people around you that see that capacity in you before you do. If I can bring this all the way back to when I first broke my neck, when I was going through rehab, the reason I was successful, obviously I made a choice. I made a choice to go down this path of light and try to get better. But the reason I was even given that opportunity is because the association saw potential in me before I did. I was in a very dark place, and people around me saw potential, and I made the choice to listen. And I never let go.
I hope people can take that and really run with it, Billy, because I think that, it's so powerful for people to keep trying and, to keep that fire. So thank you very much. We wish you much success. So everybody check out Billy Footwear. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the SCI Forum podcast. To learn more or to make a donation, please visit sci.washington.edu.